The big, beautiful bill. 0 points for originality. He just got this from Build Back Better. He's got a triple B and everything, but what do we got here? It contains a small provision seeking to render previous judicial contempt orders unenforceable. So basically, all of the contempt orders that the current courts have been doing in terms of, like, say, the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, those are of contempt. All the other, like, deportation attempts that Trump is trying to do, those are all also going to be unenforceable. What's like some other stuff that's come into contempt, right, by the courts from like the first term? The Muslim ban. Muslim ban would basically be stopped, right? Or I guess would go through. Have a chance of going through, basically, right? There's the Muslim ban. So that's cool. That's great. No one's really talking about this, seemingly. Most people are freaking out about other stuff in the bill. I think this is probably, like, the worst thing within the fucking bill, right? This is, like, some... If I were to, like, go ahead and say anything... Because we all know that the judiciary has been the main thing getting in the way of what the Trump administration's goals have been. I guess, like... Thankfully, I suppose. I guess. They've been the main thing that's been getting in the way, mostly. Saying, like, yeah, actually, you guys can't really do a lot of the shit that you are doing because, it's kind of illegal. Because it kind of is. So, that's cool. That's great. And now this seeks a small provision within the big, beautiful bill is trying to, get around that. Because, again, do the Republicans care at all about, like, the sort of illegality, the party of law and order, by the way, here. Do they care at all about, like, the illegality and any of all the bullshit that's currently going down? No. The Republicans have never fucking cared about that. It's complete nonsense. But yeah, what do we got here? Ern Chemerinsky, the dean of the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, has spotted a startling provision on the recently passed Big Beautiful Bill, a massive reconciliation budget bill. Nestled within the 1,000-plus pages of the bill that passed the House on Monday 21st was the provision: no court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction or order was issued pursuant to the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C, whether issued prior to, on, or subsequent to the date of enactment of this section. So basically, I guess what's basically being said here is, listen, if you try to fuck with any of our shit, we're going to make it such that you got to pay up, basically. You're going to lose money. So, what? I guess that means you can't pay, like, clerks or anything. You can't pay clerks. You can't pay a bunch of different people in order to be able to, sort of, like, because the purpose of this is just to throw a wrench in the works, right? Like, because broadly speaking, what does the Trump administration want to do? They are trying to stop this as much as possible. Like, a lot of these sort of, like, judicial sort of actions, because they've been the main thing, like, stopping the administration from doing even more illegal shit than they could be, right? Because the judiciary has been saying, like, no, you can't do this because it's illegal. You can't do that. Yada yada yada. And the Trump administration is of course particularly upset about that because, well, they just want to keep doing more and more illegal stuff. Oh, who would have thought? Republicans, what happened to being the party of law and order? I thought you guys cared about judicial process, so they have to do, like, this incredibly, like, fucking sneaky ass bullshit in order to be like, actually, you can't be doing any of this stuff because, well, we just want to keep doing illegal stuff that's against the Constitution, actually. Sweaty. So that's cool. That's great. Fantastic. What does that mean? It appears to be an attempt to restrict the judiciary's ability to enforce its rulings. While it's incredibly broad in scope, it seems aimed at rendering recent court orders against Trump regarding the deportations of lawful immigrants in the U.S. without due process unenforceable. Right, by, again, going after their funding, right? This is the same shit that they're trying to do with, like, Harvard and stuff, right? And, like, all the universities, they try to go after a lot of the federal funding that a lot of these institutions get as, like, a way to be able to do, well, their, or as, like, basically a way to make, what they're attempting to do unenforceable, so then they can just do anything, well, within their power that is illegal, right? That's like basically the sort of idea behind all this. But what do we have here? Up here, securities for injunctions and TROs. The first part of the provision deals with the federal rules of procedure 65C. When seeking an injunction or temporary restraining order, the federal rules of civil procedure require a federal judge to determine whether a bond is needed. This is so that if the injunction harms the defendant, they can recoup the losses if they win the case. Usually, the bond requirement is waived when a plaintiff alleges a constitutional violation by the U.S. government. Otherwise, it could be hard for many plaintiffs to challenge government laws and actions as unconstitutional. Right, because the government bonds, in order to be able to buy a fucking government bond, you need to have like millions upon millions of dollars. So, as is probably being suggested here, the Trump administration wants to make it such that, like, well, you have to be able to pay up in order to challenge me in court. Because for whatever reason, he thinks the Department of Justice are like his court, are his lawyers for some fucking reason. We love our, like, tin pot, like, authoritarian fucking bullshit crackdown, don't we? But, like, that's cool. Fantastic. Excellent. An example may help. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was deported to the notorious Secot prison in El Salvador, as you've likely heard. Allegedly. Federal courts that held that he was deported without due process, a ruling the Supreme Court affirmed, noting that the government must allow immigrants time to file a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. And basically, for conservatives, I know that Latin is a difficult language for you guys, but habeas corpus is essentially the sort of civil liberty. I'll say it's like, yeah, civil liberty that says, like, the government has to have a reason to detain you. That the government can't just, like, randomly detain you all willy-nilly. I guess even though, like, conservatives would argue, like, what do you mean the government detains us conservatives, like, all the fucking time? It's bullshit, dude. Yeah, sure, whatever. Cope and seethe, conservatives. I don't know, maybe what you guys shouldn't be doing so much fucking illegal shit like this, and then maybe you won't be getting detained. Just some food for thought, guys, So that's what habeas corpus said. With the demon egg himself, Stephen Miller was saying, like, oh, maybe habeas corpus, we shouldn't have habeas corpus because I just want to deport immigrants because I hate brown people because they make me jelly. In such a case, it makes sense to not require a security since Garcia and other detainees did not have the resources to pay for one and were no longer in the country. Eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate Garcia's return. The Trump administration has not done anything so far to bring him back, in contempt of court. Very cool. After being transferred from Secot, Garcia is still in a different El Salvador prison. This could result in a contempt order, although it seems unlikely SCOTUS will issue one, having not taken any action so far. Personally, I think that SCOTUS should issue an order of contempt on the Trump administration, because that would be really funny to see them get mad about it. While the Supreme Court has not issued a contempt order, Federal District Court Judge James Boasberg did. He found the Trump administration in contempt of court for failing to follow his orders to stop deporting Venezuelan immigrants to Secot. Right, because, again, all the lower courts and even the higher courts are in agreement with this, that what the Trump administration is doing in terms of, well, deporting all these migrants under the Alien Enemies Act is, well, it's unconstitutional. Who would have thought? Crazy. Should there be contempt of court orders are enforced by the U.S. Marshal Service, part of the executive branch. Congress appropriates its funding. Right. So they're trying to go after this funding, so then the courts are not able to follow through with contempt orders, for example, to not be able to send the court marshals in order, or the U.S. Marshals, in order to make the government, or make the government comply with court orders. That's kind of the point. Yeah, because at any point, because I've talked about this before with the original sort of like Boasberg sort of rulings and stuff. I'm just like, I think I said this myself. I'm like, if they don't comply with what's going on here, a judge can issue a contempt order and send the U.S. Marshals to be like, you're going to comply. And well, the Trump administration doesn't want that because, again, they want to keep deporting, all the migrants because I don't know, they just hate their flow and their swag. That's really the only other way I can say this. They just hate their swag. They just don't like the fact that they have way more swagger than them. I think that's really about it. I'll be honest, right? Should the big beautiful bill pass the House, Judge Boasberg's contempt order would be unenforceable, right? Because he can't pay the marshals, right? He doesn't have the money for the fucking treasury bonds because, oh, well, what if the fucking U.S. government loses the money as a result of this, such that now, because of the contempt order, what if the government loses money from this, and because of the marshals being sent to them, because of their blatant illegality. It's basically, if to summarize it, it's a way to just sort of like get around the fact that we don't want to fucking like comply with this fucking court order. Like that's if we want to get to the basic gist of it, making it such that the courts are not able to fund the enforcement mechanisms if there is a rogue sort of executive, which would be the marshals. They would send them in and be like, hey, you're going to do what the courts say, get bent, deal with it. But if they don't have the funding to do that, well, then they're just basically kind of stuck. It becomes all these fucking contempt orders become basically unenforceable because they can't pay the people in order to be able to do that. That's like a part of it, but they're also saying like any like form of previous contempt order that existed is also just like, yeah, they're nulled. You can't do them. So that's cool. If it passes, federal judges could begin requiring a normal amount of security to comply with the bill's provisions. There would likely be a lot of $1 securities required, but when bringing constitutional challenges against federal, state, and local governments. It's basically just the mafia fucking shit, dude. Like constantly, like, you better pay up if you want to have like state enforcement for all of our like reprehensible actions. It's fucking hilarious, dude, in like the worst ways possible. However, it's important to note the provision applies retroactively. This means every federal court injunction, or TRO, that waive the security requirement would be rendered unenforceable. Right, because he's gonna have to force people to fucking pay them, of which they can't do that. This also includes cases that do not involve constitutional challenges or the government. As just one example, any recent copyright cases with an injunction could be included. This provision could be scrapped in the Senate. The Senate parliamentarian could also, as Cherminsky suggested, dismiss the provision since it's unrelated to budget reconciliation. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to rely on any fucking vestiges of the Republican Senate. I assume, like, the parliamentarian has probably been approved by, like, Trump or whatever the fuck. Or, like, the Republicans are just going to forehead ignore it because, I mean, it's fairly clear that the Republicans have a hatred of democracy. They don't want, like, they just want to be, like, crackpot authoritarians. They're all in fucking league and sort of alliance with this in terms of like just a blatant usurpation of power all in the hands of the executive, so then they can just kind of do like whatever the fuck they want. So I don't think there's any reason to trust that the Senate parliamentarian can just be like, actually no. So that's cool. Amid all of the other considerations within the budget reconciliation bill, this provision is still well worth monitoring. This is why I hate all these like dumbass fucking like big giant bills that try to like fit everything in them. Shit like this gets kind of missed because of the fact that, well, there's just so much other complete just nonsense and conjecture that needs to be fucking talked about. Fucking, hey, the Enabling Act of 1933, or, you know, an attempt at an Enabling Act of 1933. It can just kind of, like, slip the cracks, I suppose, for, like, lack of a better term. So, you know, do I have any belief in the Senate that they're going to, like, be principled about this? No, fuck no. Like, Republicans have the same agenda. They are all in lockstep in terms of this sort of, a provision. I don't think, not provision, in sort of this agenda of just rank authoritarianism, right? The point is the sort of authoritarianism and the sort of basically the sort of concentration of power and well, the undoing of fucking democracy. Because again, these guys are illiberal fucking pieces of shit who just want to make you fucking suffer. This is the only thing, one of the only things that's currently holding back the administration, and I don't expect the fucking Senate to really be able to do anything about this. And I don't fucking expect the fucking Democrats to be of any help in this either. They've been, like, wholeheartedly, completely, and utterly worthless in terms of, well, everything. So, you know, I suppose it's time, it's up to, I don't know, the citizenry to be like, actually, no. You are going to comply, I guess, or some shit, and try to like stop the administration or some shit. I don't fucking know exactly where we go from here. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous and insane that this is kind of the position that we find ourselves in. It's just like, yeah, you know, this is the end of democracy. That's really cool and heckin' epic arena, guys. Whoa, so cool. So. Yeah, whoa, no way. The Republicans are okay with doing illegal shit if it means they can concentrate more power, like, for themselves? No. I I can't believe it. Who would have thought that such a thing could be conceivable? But yeah, you know, like, I should have expected some fucking shit like this to be pulled by the fucking Republicans, because, whoa, who would have thought? They just want to do a bunch of fucking illegal shit in order to be able to deport as many people as fucking possible. And guess what? Just have untold power for themselves. The untold power of the United States government and state apparatus all under themselves. So that's great. That's cool. I'm very much looking forward to all the, like, I don't know, horror stories of, like, illegal fucking nonsense and bullshit that's gonna, like, completely come out of this. So that's cool. We love the sort of like the further and further backslipping of fucking democracy because of like Orange Man. Like, listen, I just need to be able to. I just want to do a little bit of illegal stuff, just a little bit as a treat, folks. So. That's cool. That's great that this is kind of like the situation that we find ourselves in. And are the Democrats gonna fucking do anything about this? Probably not. I don't fucking expect anything from those dumb fuck geriatrics. So, you know, I suppose yet again it comes down to the American people themselves to be able to fucking fight for their civil liberties and freedoms. So that's great. That's great, honestly.